Well, hello there everyone, my name is Amy, this is The Opinionated Woman, and welcome to Crafty Reads, the series where I craft something and we talk about the last 5 books that I've read. I hope you noticed, look at what I am wearing. If you've been following my Crafty Reads, I have been working on this for a while. It disappeared for a bit because I was blocking it. And finally I had the opportunity to go take some really gorgeous pictures of it in the dog park with me and my sibling. I did a whole vlog on it, so I'll link that down below if you want to watch it. I had so much fun making that video. But because I worked on it on Crafty Reads, I was like, I have to read it. I mean, I have to wear it on Crafty Reads, like, come now. So with this project finished, I am now working on this freaking throw in this ombre yarn. I've got this left, so it's green, blue, purple, so it's going to be an ombre rainbow, another rainbow. I'm planning to put it on my couch. Look at those colors against the blue. God, beautiful, beautiful. So that is what I'm going to be working on while I chat to you about the books, if I haven't just let me untangle myself. All right, let's get to it. The first book that I read was Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson. This is a classic. I mean, classic. It's a queer, like, really important book because it came out in the 80s. Okay, so this is a semi-autobiographical book. The main character is also called Jeanette. Apparently there's a actual memoir about this that I really want to get into, because this I really enjoyed. But I think it was really hyped for me, especially when I first got onto BookTube, and I was very enamored with the idea of queer books because I wasn't out yet. I didn't realize I was gay. So I was quite fixated on those books, and I didn't know why. And I finally got my hands on it, and I'm really glad I did because I love Jeanette Winterson's writing. I just think that if it had less hype, I would have enjoyed it more, which, I mean, it happens with some books. So this is following Jeanette, who was adopted by a very fanatically religious family. So her dad is just kind of there, like you can tell that, like, her mom is the one who runs the house, really. And she apparently gets a vision from God, or like a message from God, that she needs to adopt a child, and that child is going to be blessed. So she adopts Jeanette and brings her up in this really small town in Lancashire. So that's already, like, quite difficult. Like, that's the idea that you've been adopted because, not because your mom was like, I have a calling to be a mother, but because she was like, oh yeah, this child is going to be favored by God, you know, like, quite intense. And aside from that, Jeanette is realizing that she is in fact queer. So she's queer in a very religious, anti-gay, like, very homophobic household. I mean, this is set in the 60s. She was born in 1959, so maybe this is more the 70s. So, like, being a lesbian was not something that was, you know, culturally acceptable, let alone in a tiny religious Lancashire town. So it's about Jeanette trying to figure out her sexuality and explore these things while having the church and her community to deal with, because she does a lot of preaching. Like, her faith is very important to her, but she doesn't see why that has to limit her to who she actually is and who she loves. So yeah, I found it very interesting. Jeanette Winterson's writing is stunning. I will always pick up books from her regardless of what the topic is, because her writing is stunning, and there's always a, like, little hint of magical realism. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm a slut for magical realism. Then I read The Honeys by Sala. This is, I think I got this recommendation, I mean, it was all over YouTube for a bit, but I remember Books and Lala talking about it specifically. So this is a, like, YA horror. So right at the beginning of the book, the first like, scene that we get introduced to, our main character Mars, it's nighttime, and his twin sister Caroline is at a very fancy summer camp that he also used to go to, but then there was an incident and he never went back. Well, he's gender fluid, so he uses all pronouns. So they're sleeping in their bed, and their sister, who's supposed to be at the camp, breaks in through their window and tries to kill them. And Caroline ends up dying in the ruckus. And leading up to her going to that camp, she had changed her behavior slightly, and they couldn't figure out why. She was very obsessed with the camp, especially a group of girls called the Honeys. So after seeing them at the funeral, Mars is like really fascinated, and they decide they want to go to the camp to try and find out what was causing Caroline's weird behavior and what's actually going on there. And without knowing that this is horror, you could be like, okay, it's just like a thriller-y vibe, right? But the fact that this has horror in it just adds a whole new level. So this summer camp is in the middle of nowhere. So it's very insular. It's very claustrophobic. Like, there's no one to access outside of this group. And Mars doesn't know who he can trust. And he doesn't know, why Caroline was behaving the way she did, and like what's actually going on in this place, especially on cabin H where the Honeys are. So it's where all the girls, basically, it's a girls' cabin. And they are in charge of the beehives, and no one else is allowed anywhere near the beehives. So Mars basically has to find out what creepy shit is going on in this camp. And oh my god, creepy shit. Like, it uses, like, it's not really gore, but like really gross, like body horror kind of scenes, but it also incorporates honey into the horror. And then there's like actual horror of people you think you can trust betraying you dramatically. And there's just a couple of scenes, like, because of the tension and the claustrophobia of the setting, it just kept me hooked. Like, the entire way through the book, I was feeling so tense and be like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And every time I thought things were sorted out, or that a certain person could be trusted, I found out that I was completely wrong. And it ended in a way that I did not expect at all. And I think Ryan Sala knows what they're doing, and I'm definitely going to read more from them in the future. Then I read The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. Look how stunning this book is. Oh my god. Like, geez. This is Maggie O'Farrell's latest book. And I read Hamnet last year and I enjoyed it, but I actually think I enjoyed Marriage Portrait more. And it's also, her interpretation of a historical event or a historical person. And I just think it was done so perfectly in Marriage Portrait. So we're in the 1600s, as far as I can remember, and we're following Lucrezia de Medici. And Lucrezia is, the de Medicis were a very famous, very powerful family in the 1600s, like during the Renaissance, like especially in Florence. One of them was a pope. There were multiple dukes and things like that in their family. So she's from a very, very powerful family. So obviously she's a woman. What does she get? What happens to her? She gets married off for power. So she gets married off to a guy called the Duke of Ferrara. She gets married off to the Duke of Ferrara. His name is not the Duke of Ferrara. And she gets taken to, off to where he lives, basically. And we're following two different timelines. So from like getting a little bit of her childhood, and then seeing what happens when she gets married, and then the very beginning of her marriage. But at the stage that we enter the story, we are in the present, and she has just come to this chilling realization that her husband intends to kill her. And they're in a country villa, and none of her servants are with her. She's got no one safe to turn to, basically. And so he's isolated her, and she's realized that he's going to kill her. And what Maggie O'Farrell does very dramatically, what she does very cleverly, is tells you a little bit about the person themselves and what actually happened to them. And then she makes her own interpretation and twist on it, and I love her interpretation. So at the very beginning of this book, it has a historical note that says, in 1560, 15-year-old Lucrezia di Cosimo de' Medici left Florence to begin her married life with Alfonso II d'Este, I don't know how to say that, Duke of Ferrara. Less than a year later, she would be dead. The official cause of her death was a putrid fever, but it was rumored that she had been murdered by her husband. So like Hamlet, you're going into this book knowing the main character is going to die. And you're like, oh God, like that's so intense. So there's already this like tension that she creates around the story, like right off the bat. From the historical note, there is tension in the story. And I just love Lucrezia as a character. Like, she's smart and she's artistic and creative. She's like an artist. She paints all the time. And she's just been dealt such a shitty deal because of being born a woman in this time frame. And I just love what Maggie O'Farrell did with the ending. I thought it was perfectly done, and I recommend this book to anyone who enjoys historical fiction, because this is like the perfect example of a wonderful historical fiction that isn't slow, it just reads so fast, like, or it did for me because it was so intriguing. So yes, highly recommend. Then I read something totally different, and that's Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Now, I'm not going to tell you too much about this, about what my opinions on this book. I'm going to tease you because I am filming a video. I'm in the middle of filming a video. It just so happened that this fell into this group of books for Crafty Reads. So I picked this up because of Gabby from Gabby Reads. And I am doing a reading vlog, basically reading books that she liked and books that she didn't like, and seeing my impression of them, basically. So this is the one that she did like, and spoilers, I agreed. This is probably one of the best thrillers I've read. Like, I think this is the best thriller I've read all year, for sure. It's like probably going to be on my best books of the year. But if you want to see my full thoughts, you're going to need to see that vlog, which will be coming out next week. But for now, this book is following two dads. They both ex-cons, Mike and Buddy Lee. One of them is black, one of them is white. And their sons were married. Hang on, what have I done here? So basically, Ike and Buddy Lee's sons were married, and both Ike and Buddy Lee both didn't take that very well. They were estranged from their sons. They were incredibly homophobic. And then their sons get murdered, very brutally. And the police don't seem to be doing much about it. So Ike and Buddy Lee team up, this vigilante ex-con duo, to try to find people and get some answers. And it's pretty violent, more violent than I anticipated. They are ex-cons. They were like done for violent crimes. So that's the way they deal with stuff, in a very violent manner. But the character development in this book, for a thriller, I did not expect this level of character development. I was like really impressed by it. But if you want to see my full thoughts, you are going to have to go and watch that reading vlog, because I think it's going to come out real cool. And lastly, I read an easy reread, and that is Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson. So I have a massive collection of Jacqueline Wilson from when I was a kid, and some of her newer ones as well, though they are a little bit pricey. So every now and again, I just am in the mood to, like, almost in one sitting read a Jacqueline Wilson. And there's this thing on Storygraph. Have any of you guys had that on Storygraph? When you go to your reading goal at the bottom and it says you're 2 books behind, like, you know, do read 2 more books to catch up, and you're like, oh, my reading goal. Like, reading's fun. So, like, it's not that much of a big deal, but I was like, okay, I want to bang out a book really quickly. So I read Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson. This is another one of her books that follows divorced parents, which I think is something important for a lot of kids. Like, when my parents got divorced when I was 17, so at that point in time I didn't relate to that, but I did relate to the Jacqueline Wilson characters that had parents that were screaming, shouting all the time, or my dad at least. But my sibling has read Jacqueline Wilson and really felt like that they could relate a lot to those characters, especially the divorced kids, because they were 9 years younger than me, so our parents got divorced when they were only little. So Jacqueline Wilson has always been very important to me, and this book follows Floss, and Floss's parents are divorced. Her dad runs a little greasy spoon cafe selling chip butties, like, you know, chips on a roll. And her mom has remarried, and they've got this younger brother that she sort of, you know, begrudgingly, she loves him, but she gets annoyed by him and how much attention he always gets. So her stepdad gets offered a 6-month job in Australia, and they are going to go, and she doesn't want to leave her dad behind because, like, her dad doesn't have a lot, and she is one of the things that he has, and she's like, I can't leave him behind. So she goes to stay with her dad, but her dad is not doing well financially, and yeah, some uproar happens, basically, as in all Jacqueline Wilson books. But again, as in all Jacqueline Wilson books, it ends off very hopeful, and it ends off with the character feeling like strong and empowered, and I really appreciate that about her books, especially for little girls. So yeah, that was just a cute little middle grade that I decided I needed to read. And that is it. I have just done some more green. I love when this is changing color. I love, like, just seeing this, but it's so exciting to me. So yes. So as always, my social media is linked down below. My Instagram is down there along with my TikTok. I have a crochet TikTok about this throw that is hitting right now. I've never had a video that successful on TikTok, and it's just about how long variegated yarn takes to change color. So weird, but anyway, I'm not complaining. So yeah, that's all down below, along with my little Kofi link. It's like a little one-time tip jar if you ever feel like you want to support my channel. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, and all of that fun stuff, and I'll check you next time.